This is the part where I come up with like my intro in 0.2 seconds when I don't know what I'm going to say. Um,
Sorry, I want to get the on out of the way.
no, you're good.
Yeah, no, that's always the thing. Getting starting, it's like whoop.
Yep. Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the episode 1 recap for the new season challenge battle for a new champion, otherwise known as season 39. We're here to break it down, and I have a special guest co-host with me today. You may or may have not seen her on TikTok. Blair, how are you doing?
I'm good, Mike. How are you doing? Thanks for having me. Also,
I'm doing fine. I'm glad to be doing this. Obviously, you and I got acquainted in the off season via TikTok, and I saw some of the stuff you did over there, and I thought it was pretty neat. So I wanted to kind of get somebody who I thought would be pretty qualified for the job here, so to speak, and
yeah,
be able to break this thing down. If you'd like to take the floor and just give a little bit of a basis of your TikTok, by all means, feel free.
yeah. No, thank you so much because I'm so excited to be here. I'm like literally a long time listener, first time caller type thing because I've followed your podcast for a few years, so it's super fun to be getting to know you and getting to do this. Yeah, I'm like a lifelong challenge fan, and I'm a writer, actress, comedian. And I, in the wake of All Stars and Homecoming, decided that I wanted to do a reaction kind of based to like clips from the new shows, the spinoff shows on TikTok. And that's been super fun. And I've been kind of hemming and hawing about continuing on TikTok because social media and me is kind of an interesting mix at times. But recently, I've been doing deep dives on YouTube on my channel, Hardy Har Har Comedy, where I look at old seasons of the challenge and do like longer format reactions to like the old school seasons. And now, thanks to you, I'm all caught up with the new seasons because I departed somewhere around like maybe Total Madness or Spies, Lies, and like those that
Yep.
kind of era. I've seen like episodes here and there, but I between not having cable for a while and the show just changed so much, I kind of lost interest and lost my ability to keep up. And that's part of why I like the spin-offs of like All Stars so much because it's like the people I grew up with and I had Paramount Plus and yada yada yada. But now I'm all caught up because going into season 39 with you, I'm like, I don't know who some of these people are. And I know so much of the challenge is like history with like past history, whether it's romance, whether it's people screwing each other in the game. So screwing each other over, I should say. Whoops. Because both happen. but
Comedy.
yeah. But yeah, and I feel like I quit right when it got good. Like I loved a couple of the recent seasons. I think 37 and 38 in particular. Like I really liked a lot. So thank you for bringing me back. I'm glad I'm all caught up.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. I kind of exited out the same time as you. I think it was midway of Double Agents, which was season 36.
Yeah.
Um, you and I are kind of the same like mindset. I feel like when it comes to like our stance on like the show and what we both gravitated towards, both
Yeah.
initially and like what we look for out of seasons. And my hope with this, obviously, and from when we've spoken about this, is to kind of be able to break this down like in both like if we like something, we'll be the first to say what we like, but if
Yeah.
we don't particularly like something, do it in a way that's like constructive and
Yes.
not meant to just kind of tear down anybody or
Yeah.
anything, because we know that a lot of people do like this. A lot of people, especially on the production and cast end, they work very hard to produce this. So at the end of the day, we want to give our honest thoughts and opinions while being,
Yeah.
courteous to all those involved, from fans, production,
Yes.
cast members. So I think with this season, kind of the thought process here was we're in like a little bit of a what I feel like a weird like bubble season where we're one season away from like a milestone number with 40, and I think
Oh,
like a
that's a
lot
good
of the
point.
fans are kind of speculating like that they might do something kind of big with this format. I know a lot of people have speculated something along the lines of like newbies versus like old schoolers, or possibly even
Right.
like an all champion type thing. So I think with what they were doing here with this season, and you could obviously speak to like your interpretation, but I think with like the theme and like the way they constructed the cast, with, all people who have, never won before. I think like their mind frame was them with the intent of trying to see like what their future looks like. I think because you've got people like CT, Johnny, Cara Maria. Like these people aren't going to be around forever. You know what I mean?
Right,
They
right.
need to kind of build for the future and figure out, okay, who's going to be our next Cara, who's going to be our next Johnny, who's going to be, you know, essentially, putting this show on their back for the next decade or so. What did you feel like as far as like with the theme, and the way they constructed it? Are you kind of with the same mindset as me as far as that goes?
That's so interesting because I've been kind of away from social media and like Reddit specifically for a couple months, and I didn't know that that was like a theory, but hearing it for the first time, that makes a lot of sense because I remember Jay even said in his toast something about like we're here, we're the new blood and we're here to stay, or I forget what the exact verbatim quote was, but the fact that they edited that in, because I'm sure he had a longer speech than that, but I'm sure the editors and producers maybe kept that for a reason. Like that's where my
Hmm.
technical understanding the industry brain kind of goes to. I think it's interesting because it's like they're so long overdue for a season like this. I think the closest they came was Invasion of the Champions, right?
Hmm.
And it feels like it's very similar because my only complaint about this episode was that we didn't get to see any of the big guns uh, coming in. Like usually we see them infiltrate like right away, like in Ride or Dies or whatever. And I'm like, wait, we went a whole episode and we know Cara Maria is coming back. We know that like all these like big hitters are here and like where are they? Um, but it makes sense because they brought in such an interesting group of people who are kind of newer to the US, right? Because they've been on other iterations of the challenge throughout the globe, but they're none of them are rookies. Like none of them, it's like their first challenge. And then they had like some older people that have been around for like a minute. Like Big T is kind of becoming like an institution, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a very iconic narrator at this point. So you have like a mix of people, and I think you're right. I think they're kind of throwing stuff up against the wall with different personality types, different athletic abilities, different social games to see who can like sort of stand out. Because yeah, with 40 around the corner, they're gonna do something, right? Like there's no way.
Yeah, and I think like they're probably wanting to crown like newer winners, I guess, to kind of maybe,
Yep.
bulk up the amount of champions that they have, at least options
Yeah.
wise, going into 40. But
Uh-huh.
like you said, with the personalities, um, I think like that was a big thing in terms of the detractors. And I know a lot of people, haven't noticed any differences and they like it right along. That's also fine too. But I've noticed with like the ones that are the detractors of, kind of the direction of which the flagship's gone has kind of been the personalities, and them kind of feeling like we were almost like devoid of like some of the old personalities that like
Yeah.
made the show special initially. But I think what I did notice with this, especially with them doing like a launch special too, and kind of the way they constructed, the first episode, is they did a good job of giving a background on a lot of the characters and also
Mhm.
showed them kind of being like, having like a little bit of spunk to them, funny, being witty. And I think that was a smart strategy when kind of
Yeah.
looking to showcase some of these newer cast members to people and like make you want to like almost root for them in a sense. Like I know like you're gonna have like your people that are like solely competition. You're gonna have your people that are like almost solely social commentary, and then kind of like a little bit in between. Like I'm able to kind of pinpoint certain similarities with a lot of these newer people, and like just distinct similarities to some of the old school cast members. Like somebody like a Michelle, from Survivor. She reminds me so much of Paula. Um,
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
Huh.
like just so much like Paula. Horacio, I see like a lot of similarities to him with Landon. Um,
Yeah. I
even
can
like a
see him a
big,
little bit as a Derek too, because like he was in so
yeah,
many eliminations the season before. See,
that's a good
thank you
one
for
too.
making me catch up with all this stuff. I'm glad I know this history. But like, yeah, like he's a beast. Like he's someone that you think will dominate one day. Like I'm confident Horacio will be a challenge winner.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Like my money's on him, whether it's this season or a future one. Like there's no way, he's so good.
listen, if we were betting people, we might want to put some stock into him.
Right, exactly.
Like even with somebody like Big T, who's like, commentary, like people like her are so essential cast members to the show
Mhm.
because cast members such as her are what keeps the show going because you need
Yes,
somebody to be able to narrate what's going on and kind of be like that almost relatability factor of like,
yes.
hey, I'm not like the biggest person out there, but I could like kind of, makes turn some heads here if I, do something right. Like Big T reminds me so much of like a younger Cara Maria before, like around Cutthroat time, Cara Maria, like
Yeah,
Rivals Cara Maria. That's really what she kind of reminds me of.
or a little bit of Devin Simone too. Just the colorful
Yeah, yep.
commentary. Like she's so and like loves herself in a way that's like not toxic. I think it's genuinely just I'm gonna show up for myself. This is who I am, and I love Devin so much. I think she's so fun. So and then Anissa a little bit too. Anissa's one of the greatest narrators of
Oh
the
yeah.
show,
Hmm.
and kind of like a Big T where like people underestimate her, but she's she can dominate in elimination sometimes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like she's kind of a wild card. She's either going to go very far or something's going to happen.
Hmm. Well, you did hit it on the head as far as like the last time we saw something similar was kind of Invasion of the Champions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some differences in that like Invasion of the Champions contained all like this was like prior to them pulling from like CBS shows. It was
That's
like Real
right.
Worlders and like some Are You the One people.
That's right.
And like I remember in the beginning of Invasion of the Champions, they had them living on like that like island type thing. And something similar was when they had them staying overnight for this, like initially to
Right.
start off. I think that's smart because like at this stage we've already seen like if you want to kind of put them in like an unfamiliar, uncomfortable situation, I think we've already seen kind of like the whole throw them on an island, throw them in a bunker on Total Madness type of thing. I think the fans don't necessarily translate well to seeing the cast members miserable on screen.
I
Like
don't
they
think
want
so
to see them
either.
having fun. They want to see, and I know that that was a big thing with Total Madness and Double Agents, and what kind of pushed some people away is like the kind of the dark and dreary
Yeah.
vibe of them. Like people watching the show watch it like some people might be watching it as like an escape from their like normal life. Like they don't want to feel like they're depressed trying to watch these people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because initially, like, it's interesting too, because I recently have watched the first two seasons of the challenge before they knew it would be the challenge type thing. It was like a road rules season with real worlders, and then it was road rules versus real world, and that was the first time challenge was used. And they're not living in these like fancy places, right? They're on
Hmm.
Winnebago still. So it feels appropriate to kind of haze them for a night, but not have it be the whole season. Cause you're right. Like I don't like watching people in bunkers. That's weird. Like, especially when that was happening in the pandemic in real time
Oh
for
my
one of
god,
the seasons too.
can't
It
make
was
that
just,
up.
it,
Like,
no, it was dystopian. It was so bizarre. And when the challenge started cooking with gas and kind of we got to like Battle of the Seasons, the first one, or Battle of the Sexes and the Gauntlet and all that stuff, it kind of felt like adult summer camp. And it was like an escapism. It was part for real competition with athletics, part chancy competition that's like kind of random, and part reunion and part summer camp or vacation, watching beautiful people be in cool resorts or at the pool talking. And that's a part of the fun because that's a part of the fun of real world and road rules. And it keeps the connective tissue to the show alive.
yeah, and they definitely did a good job, like we said, of establishing like a fun element to it. And like we saw certain people stand out. Like I think a lot of people got like to really showcase their personality. I mean, Big T
Yeah,
definitely got kind of like almost like a main character arc type of,
she
you
did.
know, but not even just her. They did a really good job of presenting everybody to where like it almost feel like they evenly distributed to a
Yeah.
large degree, sort of the character development here with a lot of these cast members. Who do like stood out to you from episode one? Either as
Hmm.
somebody like. just you gravitated towards their personality, or just they just stood out to you?
So, in terms of people, I really didn't know who they were. I don't remember his name, but the blonde guy with the tattoos up to his neck, and he helped
Yeah.
everybody he made the plan to get everyone get out the wall.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't know anything about him, and he was an interesting character to me because he seems pretty competent, but he's like likable. Also, like I've noticed that they've had more they definitely have some fuckboys still and like people that are like whatever, but they've had like a lot of very likable people that they've pulled from other shows. Like I think it was season 37. I was shocked at how many people were just nice to people and it wasn't all villains who villain. I'm like, oh, this is such a refreshing kind of all stars feeling energy. And he kind of reminded me of that. It feels like they're also, like you said, with Michelle and Berna, I can't completely tell where they're going arc wise because they both kind of have like a lot of enemies or people that would sacrifice them, and they're athletic but they're not like Laurel scary or Cara Maria
Right.
scary in terms of like their abilities, at least as far as I've seen. So
Hmm.
like that's interesting to me. I know that there's others, but like some of these faces are still sort of newer to me, so I'm curious who the standouts are for you because you might help jog my memory a little too.
Yeah, in terms of like who I feel is like sort of being presented to us as kind of like these are going to be your next superstars here is like probably
Mhm.
Olivia and Horacio, respectively.
I like them a lot too as
No,
people.
yeah,
Seem like
no,
such nice
100%.
people. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I definitely, I definitely think like you said, Berna, not really making too many friends right off the bat here, but like, if one really stacks up, skills here, I mean, one can make an argument she might be the best of the bunch as far as the females go, competitor wise. So
Yeah.
that's really going to be like an interesting plot because if you got somebody who may not be the most liked, but they're the most like talented, then that's going to be like a
Yeah.
rock and a hard place situation. Like, do you value skill over potential politics here? Like that's going to be something to watch because it seemed like there was, at least to me, like kind of a few different alliances straight off the bat. Like it
Mhm.
seemed like there was one going on between like like the Olivia, Nerese, Mariah, and I want to say Raven were like a
Mhm.
four-person power trip, and then I saw like Big T and
Yeah.
Melissa kind of got their own thing going on, and then Burn is kind of in no man's land there.
Right. And people are trying to help her, like the woman who's a psychologist. I don't remember her name yet. I think she's blonde. And Huey too, who I
Mm,
also I like Huey. He's hard not to like. You know what I mean? Like he's just like, here I am, this is who I am, and I like people like that.
yeah, I think Huey kind of reminds me a little bit of like trying to make the compare, like kind of like a Tyler Duckworth type of guy. I don't know if that's
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison because they're both again good, but they're not CT good. They're kind of a
Mhm.
wild card athletically, like they could lose or they could win, but they're also really fun color commentators, narrators
Yeah.
as well.
Hmm. Well, I mean, we certainly saw like at least on the guys' end, like it seemed like they were kind of like a well-oiled machine as far as like
Uh,
working together. Like that was another interesting thing. We've never seen this, at least from like what I've seen. I've actually know the very first season of the challenge, although I don't really like count it that well. Everybody was on the same team. It was just
it
like
wasn't a competition; they just had to complete the mission. Yeah,
yeah, we've never seen like a traditional challenge season have everybody on the same team,
yeah,
so this is definitely um it's definitely like an interesting, plot line here. My gut tells me that somewhere along the line, either at the midway point, they're either going to split them up into two
yeah.
teams or like go individual. That to me is like at least where I think we're headed here.
I think so too. I would say partners, but I think at the end of the day, it is going to be teams or individual because it's like partner challenges tend to be so specific, like rivals, exes, ride or dies, things like that. So I also am curious about like what the so are the champions being brought in as like mercenaries or are they going to
Yeah,
join
they won't
the
they
team?
won't be active. members of the
Got
game itself. They're just
gotcha.
basically hitmen hired for the eliminations.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't completely sure. So, because that would have been interesting if they had to battle a champion in every elimination. Like that would have been kind of cool.
Listen, if I'm playing devil's advocate here, if I'm like
Sure.
if I'm like an executive, the reason why I think like the mercenaries are being brought in, and again, I can't fault them because it fits within the context of trying to crown a new champion. Going through, you got to be the best, you got to beat the best type of narrative going on there. I think just like honestly, if I'm being honest, I think the champs are being brought in as like sort of like a marketing thing as far as like
Yeah.
because if you're trying to market a season and get people to tune in, you kind of gotta like throw like your CTs and cars in a trailer. It looks catchy. Oh, this one, they're on this week. Let me go and tune in, type of thing. You don't have
Yeah.
your traditional like franchise pieces there to kind of throw in the season and market. So they kind of gotta
Yeah.
draw some people in. I think that's like reason number one. But reason number two, I mean, it fits within the context of the story at least. But I am most excited to see Kara return because it's been
Yeah.
like four-ish. Yeah, it's been 4 years since we've seen her.
And she was an institution. Like she was on more
Oh
seasons,
yeah,
not in a
she was like
row
the
for
face of the franchise. Like at one point,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, love her or hate her, it doesn't even really matter. Like she's the challenge. She's on the Rushmore faces somewhere. So, like we were talking off camera that, like it's hard for me to personally pick a Rushmore because there's so many different categories of how you could like qualify it, but
Hmm.
she's a contender no matter what, I think. So,
Yeah. Um, one thing I did notice too. I don't. This is just what I picked up on because we talked about like them kind of splitting up midway. From a narrative perspective, I don't know if this is their intention, like from the start, with seeing kind of how the vote went down with like the guys trying to be like, oh, it was like the girl's fault, a girl should go in
yeah.
type of thing. If I'm like, an executive here, I'm like seeing this unfold and I'm like, okay, we got it. We're gonna have to make this a battle of the sexes type situation midway through,
I
it's right
know.
there for the taking. If you're able to improvise, if I'm like a producer, like I'm ad-libbing this, maybe it wasn't your intentional idea, but like if you're just watching this thing unfold, like it'd be like, I think we might have to like pivot here and make this a sexist format and like have guys girls situation. And then if you want to like at the end make it like an individual final, go ahead. But like I think like from a narrative perspective, it makes so much sense to do a battle of the sexes type format.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too because I clocked that as well. I was like, "Whoa, are we watching an old school season now?" Because that hasn't really Battle of the Genders at all. Kind of hasn't been a thing for a few seasons. Like that is hasn't been the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of stunned to see that from the jump that both sides were kind of strategizing to get someone of the opposite gender out. Um, I'm curious because that they set up the rules, but that they have wiggle room where like if they're saving like for instance an elimination and they know two heavy hitters are going to go up against it, they're going to pull hall brawl instead of like a puzzle. Like that they're going to
Mm-hmm.
swap out or change some things on the flip of a dime depending on what happens. So that could be one of them for sure because why not run with it? But I'll be curious about the second episode and third, see if that pattern gets solidified or if it twists in a different direction anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to kind of like balance the daily challenges to where they don't really favor like a specific sex or gender, like that's one way to do it. But that kind of remains to be seen. I did enjoy kind of the deliberation though. It was like really refreshing to see like almost like a group sort of,
Yeah.
you know, going back and forth debating on like why somebody or should and shouldn't go in. I kind of miss that banter. I like seeing like an unpredictability as opposed to like, somebody just kind of getting ganged up and thrown in like, oh yeah, like I like seeing actual deliberations happen to where like
Yeah.
something like the ruins we saw like, nobody knew who was going in. There was like genuine like putting our heads together, having a vote and like figure out like who's the, person to go in. Like I missed that element. So that it reminded me a lot of like old school challenge.
Yeah, because like the past seasons have had a little bit of that, but at the end of the day, the voting is usually kind of different or not public, you know, the way it is. Like it kind of reminded me of the duel a little bit with the name, like going down the line and saying names when they actually got to the elimination. Because that's the other thing too. You can deliberate all day, but if whoever's first picks a name and people want to just follow it, so you know what I mean, like safety in numbers, they're not like saying something on their own. That's an interesting twist in a way, because I
Yeah.
think everybody thought they were going to vote for someone else, but then as uh, Jessica, is that her name? The
Mm-hmm.
yeah, as
Yep.
she got, everyone just kept saying her. You know, everyone who wanted to say Big T or a guy just were like, "F it, we're just gonna comply."
I don't know. I think Horacio saying Big T was not a great idea because
Shots
if you
fired.
see everybody, like, it's one thing to kind of be, I understand like wanting to be your own person and be different, and I respect that generally,
Sure,
but in that
sure.
situation you kind of have to be like, I mean, 30 other people just said this person's name, why am I gonna like shoot my own self in the foot on the first day and say somebody else's name?
But that's like what's so interesting about this season, because besides maybe a J and a big T, offhand, that's who I'm thinking of, but I know there's a few more. Most have only done a season or two. They're still kind of rookies for what we
Yeah.
qualify as rookies, you know? And like, I feel like it's going to be messy for that reason, because like even Jessica being like, I'm going to talk about how I'm short. It's like that's such a rookie mistake. Like you don't put a, and then Horacio being like, I'm going to say Big T. That's not how the game is played when it's played well. So it's interesting to see them in real time make mistakes that like are probably going to come back to bite them. Or in Jessica's case, it did because she got sent home. But like, Horacio, it's probably going to come back to bite him. But at the same time, he's dealing with all these other rookies. Maybe they won't single him out the same way because they're going to be playing a different game, if you will. Like, it's just interesting to see how it's going to all play out.
Yeah. I really I missed that element, and I think that's really important. Sort of the messy element to it. I think like for a while there we had seen a little bit of too much kumbaya stuff going on. That was a
And
big
they're too savvy. And they're too savvy.
yeah. So we need messiness. I
Yep.
understand like you don't want the entire thing to be messy, but a healthy balance of messy and you know competition is certainly what I think is required for a challenge season to be good or not.
I agree.
Yeah. And speaking of Messi, we saw what is his name? I feel like his name is Kyrian. Kyrian. With I think they show. I think that I don't think it happened yet, but we see like sort of like this budding romance between him and Michelle going on, and then in the trailer at the end, he's got a girlfriend.
Well,
Um.
no, I think he did say, because he got on the phone with her in the episode, and it's
Oh,
like
okay,
the
yeah.
cryon said like his girlfriend, and I was like, mm. Yeah, that's so. We haven't seen a blatant like messiness like that in a while. Like Horacio a little bit with like Laurel last season, because like he kind of was talking to someone back home, and she was like, "Okay, peace out," but it was a gray area. But this was like his girlfriend, so.
You know who this reminds me of?
Who?
Dunbar.
Oh,
Guy was like the token, like I've got a girlfriend guy story. Like I feel
but
like
I'm
that
flirting
happened
with
like
Kim and
multiple.
Paula.
No, yeah, it was literally real world. It happened.
That
It
too.
happened on like I believe the island, the Duel Two,
Yep. Yep.
maybe even the ruins. But yeah, that was like a thing. Like him always having the girlfriend, and then
Yep.
always having like a thing going on. So
You're right. That's a good comparison for sure.
modern day Dunbar. Never thought I would say that in 2023.
Yeah, where'd he go, man? Like he disappeared from the challenge entirely.
Yeah, I liked also that the daily and the elimination was like hard enough, but it didn't seem like inconceivable that like somebody at
Yeah.
home could do it.
It reminded me of the old school challenge where it's hard, but it's not like super industrial and they have to like, make bombs not go off and or they have to like not run 15 miles or something. It was just very like, this is a mission that's so weird that you couldn't do this at your average gym or probably even a special gym. So it's fun to watch because it's like an escapism, but it's still like you need some athleticism and skill for sure, and smarts too.
Where they really lost me was like during Total Madness, they had like this one daily challenge where people had to like jump into this pool filled with like negative degree like water, like ice, and you had like multiple different people get taken to like the ambulance or whatever.
Right.
And at that point, it was kind of like, what are we doing here? Like, this is just like borderline torture. Like, if people want to go watch this,
Yeah.
there's a new Saw movie that just came out, Like, if people are really interested
Right.
in this kind of torture stuff.
I think that's the thing. The challenge just started to take itself so serious, kind of in that season and the seasons kind of immediately surrounding it. Because it's like they also would wear like all black, which is so hard to figure out what you're even watching. When they're on these Mack trucks or flying through the air, everyone's running in a mud pit or whatever it is that they're doing. Like, I do like, even though they're all still wearing the same uniform, I do like that it's orange and gray right now because
Mhm.
it's more eye catching and you can like it kind of brings back the fun of the challenge in my opinion, but it's also easier to kind of keep track of people a little bit because everything just blurs together when they're in head to toe black and doing these crazy like Mission Impossible style challenges, which is fun once or twice a season, but we want to see the goofiness or the unpredictability or the lightheartedness while still keeping it athletic, like it's feels like we've been swinging back in that direction and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, that was again, that was like a big component as to why the show is special to begin with. I mean,
Yeah.
my personal favorite era, I loved the show from I think I want to say like I'd say like the Duel 2 era for me through like probably Battle of the X's 2 was probably like my favorite. Like just
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't have like almost like a bad season through that stretch. And I still like the show like in the like the Rivals 3 era, like there kind of didn't really feel like, that season in particular. I had nothing against the daily challenges. They were all fine
Mhm.
and I like the format. It's just like Bananas and Sarah very clearly were like going to win. So there was not like a whole like whole lot of competition that season. And then Bloodlines was kind of a little bit like,
It
you
was
know,
wonky. It was
yeah.
a wonky season to
But I
me.
still
It's
liked
fun,
it
but
from yeah, but I still enjoyed it from like Dirty 30 and Vendettas and even
yeah,
War of the
they're fun.
Worlds started getting harder, but like I still like the personalities. Um so yeah, this was great, I thought. I mean, Daily Challenge wasn't too inconceivably hard, but hard enough to where it
Yes.
actually makes you like work because you had to go and retrieve these, poles from this like almost like dirt ditch in a sense, and then go and
Yeah.
solve a puzzle. And one thing I did catch on this is there was money on the line in that daily challenge. Back in
Yeah.
the day, there used to be
Right.
like you could win money by winning daily challenges. It wasn't just the final.
Yes. I miss that. I'm glad that they brought that back because it gives this there's more stakes to the daily challenges, At a certain point, it was too easy to throw a challenge because there was no consequences if you lost a challenge besides maybe going into an elimination, but sometimes that was strategic, right? And it's not that they didn't throw challenges back in the day with like an inferno or something. Of course they did, and they would miss out on 10,000, but they would sometimes do it to get rid of like dead weight or whatever, but like that just adds to like again, it's stakes. Are you going to lose the money? Are you going to lose the teammate? And I also miss when they had prizes too, because that was fun to watch people win, like Brad win a motorcycle or get a new laptop. Like, because again, there's an escapism where it's like, I want to go on a show or I'd win cool prizes. And it was fun to watch people like win or lose the prize that they want. Like, it made it a little more dynamic. And again, the challenge kind of lost that DNA along the way. So this feels like a little bit of a callback to older seasons.
Well, I got to put you on the spot here. If you're
Yeah.
on a challenge and there's prizes to be had, what's like one thing that if TJ is just like, all right, whoever wins this challenge, this is yours. Like what's one thing that if it was on the line, you're going like AWOL to like ensure that you go and win this thing.
Oh man, that's a really good question. I don't know. I think it would be something like if there was like a MacBook Pro or something on
Mm.
the line, like something that's like a little expensive and hard to get on your own or you have to like save up for. Cause like I'm in entertainment and I want I hate my MacBook Air. I want the MacBook Pro. So I'd be very excited about that, or something along those lines, like any gadgets that I really can only afford every few years. Like anything that's an upgrade, I think would be. But I don't know. Maybe a trip to Aruba would be fun too, because they used to give away vacations. So I think either something technological that would be helpful for me in my life, or like a sweet vacation. I think those would be the two big things. But what about you?
Um, I am kind of a glutton for food, so like if there was some like if they're like, oh yeah, winner of this gets to go and like eat something like away from the house on your own type of thing, like because I know
Like the
some
Burger King challenges or the
yeah,
Apple challenges that they used to do.
maybe
Yeah.
not Burger King itself, though I will say Burger King is actually getting a bad rap. I think it's actually quite fine. That's just my opinion, but that's for a different day. I think probably some form of food. I know Survivor does it where like that's different. Obviously, Survivor you're kind of getting like starved out there. So like when you win a
Mhm.
challenge, they're like, oh yeah, winner gets to go and enjoy like a private food thingy majingy and bring somebody with you. That could be
The island
tempting.
did that. The island did that too. Remember when they shipped in pizza and they got to eat it and bring
Yeah,
it?
I'd say probably some form of food, maybe, but like I'm a pretty simple guy, so if like there's a lot of money on the line, I'd probably just say lean towards money, and then I'll figure out what I want to use that money for after the
Yeah.
fact. Because like I don't know if I was on the spot, like maybe tickets to like a concert or something, depending on like who you should be
Yeah.
performing. I'd
Right.
gladly take Post Malone tickets in a heartbeat. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, now we're kind of just veering off into like what we're asking for Christmas at this
I
point.
know, right? Dear Santa.
Yeah, Santa, listening to this, you know where to hook your boy up here.
Yeah.
um, who are some cast members that like maybe maybe not are right at this moment being like penciled as like okay this is kind of like your main person but you feel like it's like
Mhm.
almost like a dark horse to be sort of like a
Ooh.
mainstay sort of throwback to somebody from the past, like who's somebody you feel like's got potential to be like okay this person's got mainstay potential.
Oof, that's a good question. Because there's just so many people to kind of pick from, like I guess I mean some of the names we talked about already, like Horacio, Olivia, even Big T, like people like that. But I'm curious about what Jay's trajectory is going to be, because they keep bringing him back, and he's kind of the little engine that could. But he even said it; he's never made it past the halfway point, which kind of blew my mind because I don't think I clocked that. So it's like they clearly love him, but I can't tell what he's really going to do on the challenge. I also just really like players like Corey. I think he's like, is his name or the gay guy
Yeah,
who's
Corey.
yeah. I was like, wait, I'm like, am I thinking of another Corey? I'm so bad at names. Anyone that's like watched any of my other content knows this, but I just think he's very likable, and I think he's talented, like he's athletic. But I'm curious because it looks like in the preview he like says he's using people, you know what I mean, and like kind of being a double agent. So I'm kind of curious about like, ooh, what's his trajectory going to be? I can't help but root for Chauncey because he just seems like a nice human, and I
Yeah.
think he's athletic. So it's hard because some of these personalities I just don't know as well, even having caught up with the seasons. So I'm like, I don't feel like I know all the ins and outs of their abilities or like how they're going to mentally play the game. So I'm still sort of taking it all in. What about you though?
Well, by the time this comes out, shout out, I interviewed Corey. Came out on, I think it's Monday. I think at this point,
Okay.
just kind of get a firm. This is
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, this will be out next week. So yeah, this interview will be
Okay.
out at that point. Um, Shameless plug. No, in terms of like who, if I'm like speaking from an objective opinion of like who I think like okay, this cast member has a lot of like mainstay potential. I actually think because I said like dark horse, there's some obvious ones like Olivia Horacio,
Yeah.
some more obvious ones. I think a not so obvious one is Raven,
Which one
because
is Raven? Which one is she?
curly hair, light skinned.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look her up. For some
Yeah,
reason, she did not make an imprint, or at least not immediately coming to mind.
no, because I just saw in the trailer and like I just noticed with like some of her commentary, like She reminds me of like a Teresa, somebody who's like
Mhm.
something messy is about to happen, um, for better or for worse.
Right.
But like, yeah, I think she's gonna have like a really big season, at least from what I've kind of seen from the trailer. And some just like her personality seems like somebody that's not afraid to like, get her hands dirty, both competition and like strategic wise. So I think she's got
Mhm.
like more of like a dark horse candidate. And then like as far as like the guys go, because I'm trying to be like more like dark horsey, like sort of out of left field here. Um, I don't know what he's like as a competitor, but I think like in terms of like what they look for in terms of storyline here, the guy who's cheating on his girlfriend, it's definitely going to make like an imprint here. We'll have to see how he is as a competitor, but that is literally like what they look for in terms of
Yeah.
messy guys.
I just made another connection where I almost don't want to compare him to him because he's literally a convicted criminal at this point. So I don't want to like have
Oh
shots
God, I
fired.
think I know where you're
But
going with this.
kind of like Bear, because didn't Bear have like
Yup.
a girlfriend too? I forgot about that, and like was leading on Georgia, and so interesting. But like, I have a question. Like, are you surprised that they didn't bring back some other mainstays who have not won a challenge, like other Corey? Corey who's now on like Teen Mom, or like I don't know if this was filmed before or after Nelson's accident, but he's like another one that's kind of glaringly missing to me.
No,
Ronnie,
this was filmed. I believe this was filmed in May, and it like,
okay.
yeah, and Corey was, I believe, either still filming or just had got done filming the Challenge USA too.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Okay.
you know, mhm.
That makes sense because there's just like a lot of people from the past 5 to 10 seasons that have like really become staples in their own right. Or like, I'm very invested in like Nani's trajectory because she's good and she only gets better, but she still hasn't won and she's not on this challenge. And people like that, there's a few others, but there's some from like the most recent seasons where I'm like, oh, where like they didn't bring back Amanda. That would have been interesting too.
Oh,
Amanda's
she would
never
have fit
won.
this season like a glove.
Where's Amanda? Like seriously, like whether you love her or
I
hate
think
her, she's never not in her lane.
she did the USA thing too.
Oh, okay. So there you go.
That's
So
that's the
it's
thing. Like,
interesting.
I think like there was so many people, like all the prime candidates of people that I think would have fit this format like a glove. All were on that Challenge USA. You had Corey, Paulie, Amanda.
Yeah.
He's a polarizing guy, but Fessy even would fall under
Yeah.
that category as well.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I was about to say Hunter, but he's technically one, depending on which way you look at it. I'd consider him a
True.
champion. I consider him one.
Yeah, I do too. Just because he didn't win the money didn't mean he didn't win.
Yeah, Sarah won on,
Exactly.
and she didn't get money
100%.
still. Like he's
I
somebody that like if you think about who would have fit this season, like kind of feels like he would have, but he's technically a champ. But I think because like he like just disappeared so like soon after winning,
Yeah.
it kind of feels like there's more of a void with him. But I wouldn't have, even minded him being brought in as like a mercenary technically because he's won.
Yeah. Or they could have brought back like because remember going back to Invasion of the Champions, they had like an old school person like Shane on it.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
there isn't really anybody that's like from that era or even 10 years ago that like just didn't win for whatever the reason. I'm spacing on like who that maybe could have been, but they didn't. Yeah, they could have gone. It's interesting that it's so many new people, like which I think speaks to what you're saying, where they're really trying to groom a new generation. Because some of these old heads, who knows how much they can come back in the future. So you're onto
Who
something.
who's like a random return for this season that would have fit the format that like you mentioned Shane on Invasion, right? Like he
Yeah.
just popped up out of nowhere, but like fit
Yeah.
that theme and he obviously made the season a whole lot better. One could argue he was like the MVP of that season, honestly.
Yeah.
Um and then you seen like in like past seasons, like on Vendettas, Brad popped up after a long time away.
Yeah.
Derek on 30-30, even Teresa on Double Agents, like that
Yeah.
was out of nowhere. Who is somebody that like either guy or girl or both? You could throw a couple names if you'd like. Who's somebody you would have loved to see just like pop up out of nowhere, like random return that like fits this
Mm.
format? Because I got like a couple.
I mean, God, so many people that could fit, but I mean, like, I think ironically, I probably have so many names, but the ones that kind of came to mind would have been someone like, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, but someone like an Eric, like a Big Easy, you know what I mean? Because he always had that underdog story. I don't know if I
That's random.
so random, and he was on All Stars, so I don't know how much it counts because we did sort of see him recently, but like he's somebody, he's kind of like an Anissa, like you
Yeah.
know that where it's like he can do so well in challenges, but does anyone really believe they're going to win the final? Hard to say. Probably not. Like probably not. I don't mean to be a hater, but probably not. But like he's random, or even a Devin Simone. I already said her for a different reason, but she fits that energy because they're all kind of silly, and like her and Big T, I want to see in a room together like so bad. But like she's another wild card that can go far, but is kind of an underdog too, you know? But I know that
Yeah.
there's others, so I want to hear what you have to say because there's so many names I could pick, but that's just like what went to my brain.
Just off the top of my head here, and they're both from the same Real World season. Dustin and Cook from Real World
Yeah,
back to
that
Las
yeah,
Vegas. Like they would have just been like just completely out of left field returns, and they're like still like they're
absolutely.
still young enough to where they would have kind of like fit in like with I think
Yeah.
Cook is the same age as Casey, and
Okay.
yeah, so like
Yeah.
she would have fit right in. Dustin's around the same age as that, so like they're right around the same age as a lot of like the average uh, cast members, so they would have kind of been plucked right in there. And I mean, Nani and Leroy are like,
Yes.
kind of relatively mainstay people. I know Leroy hasn't been on in a couple of years, but
He'll be on
um,
All Stars 4 though, right? Like
wink.
he's
Yeah, yeah. So um, I think bringing them back would have been interesting. I'm trying to think, like, because I'm trying to be like fair here, and people that haven't won. Um,
Ooh, I have a random one. Marlon from
I would.
Portland.
Yep, that was
Because like
mhm.
he and Jordan went so far in Rivals, and then we never did we ever see him again? Was he on Free Agents or
No,
one?
no, he
Okay,
never.
it was his only, you know.
Avery would have been a good one too.
Oh, that would have been a really good one. Or even Johnny, like her
Yep.
ex. Like, because I
Hmm.
think both of them would fit the energy of this cast in terms of it's a little bit messy and a little bit not savvy, but like they're both fine at what they do. Like they weren't awful, you know? Got you.
Naya would have been cool too. I know we've seen her recently, but she would have fit
Yeah,
this. So
I agree. I'm trying to think of like anybody who also went out without like winning from either kind of recent or older seasons that we haven't seen in a while. Because I know there's so many people that were hoping to win and, um, haven't for what it's a shame that Robin's not super healthy these days because like
yeah,
she really wanted to win and never did, and obviously she's not going to be on our screens anytime soon. She's dealing with personal stuff, but she'd be, I don't know if it'd be healthy for her to come back to reality TV ever, but like I feel bad that she never won, if that makes sense, because she was one of those people that wanted to win.
yeah. I mean, not to veer too much off, but it would have been nice to see like her in a homecoming capacity. But I don't think anything. Well, I don't even know if homecoming's even a thing anymore at this
Right, I don't
point.
think
But
anybody
like,
does.
not to veer too much off here, but
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, as far as I go, I think because I didn't want to get too much into the weeds of like the specific episodes. Obviously, if you watched it, you don't need like a comprehensive like breakdown of every little
Right.
detail of the episode. We're kind of just here giving our like broad scope on some of the people in the show. But
Yeah.
is there anything else that you'd like to add as far as the episode goes?
I think the only thing I want to add is that like I guess two things. I just found the Jessica thing hilarious, how she kept talking about how short she was and cutting to all the people just staring at her kind of weird and stuff. I texted you about that because I was, full disclosure, I was kind of stoned when I was watching it, so that was extra funny to me. I was just like, this is such a
You
rookie
know what that
mistake.
reminds me of? Not as bad, but like, do you remember by any chance? Did you watch Total Madness where that girl Jen said "Greetings, Earthlings"?
Oh
in
shoot,
the
offhand,
nomination speech.
I'm not remembering that
Oh
offhand.
my goodness. Well, you've got your homework assignment. You got to go on
Okay,
Paramount Plus. I believe it's
watch it.
episode number 2.
Okay.
And you got to go to this Deliberation nomination because, yeah.
There was, yeah, that's like the funniest moment to me because it felt like an old challenge season, whether it's from what you just referenced or I hate to say it, but like Robin also in Rivals gave a real batshit
Yeah.
mea culpa, don't vote for me kind of speech. So there's that. But the thing that I think is kind of exciting though to end, I guess, is that I have no idea where the season's gonna go. Like I feel like it'd be weird if like Big T was out halfway through because it feels like she's getting that main character energy. So there's like a few guesstimates like that, but I have no idea who's going to be next eliminated. I have no idea how people are going to face off against each other. I don't know what politics are going to happen because a lot of the alliances are newer too,
Hmm.
or we're less familiar with them as viewers, depending on where they're coming from. So it's exciting, and I just kind of want to buckle up because I don't like when it's rivals and it's like people like Wes and Kenny, you know that they're gonna go far, right? Like you
Yeah.
know that they're if they're not gonna win, they're gonna place high. And which is another thing. I like that they're also getting money for second and third place. That's something I miss from the older seasons as well. So I'm on the edge of my seat because I have no predictions with like who's even gonna make it to the end.
Yeah, I also would like if they brought back, like, I know it's different because there's like a bunch of them on the same team right now, but I would like last place automatically goes into elimination type
I miss
format.
that too. I kind of miss that too because it helped it.
Simplifies everything.
Yeah, because it helped it be both on strategy and on ability. It was a combination where it made it very hard to predict how it was all going to line up and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and plus, it would definitely dictate how people would like to throw somebody into elimination depending on who's down there. If you have like a
Yes.
tough person in elimination, you're not gonna might be hesitant to throw like somebody down there, being like,
Yeah.
oh, well, this person's coming back, or you might send somebody like good down there to take out the person that's in elimination. So that definitely would certainly impact the political side of things, you would think.
Well, because you had to change your strategy on the drop of a dime depending on who placed last. Because like who you wanted to throw in, maybe that wasn't smart to throw in against that person because maybe it was CT and CT was going to eat them and like they were going to go home, and you wanted to keep them or, because they, or like I worded that weirdly, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's like there's just
Yeah,
uncontrolled variables, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
for sure. Well, I had a fun time hopping back into the
Yeah,
flagship.
so did
I'm
I.
sure as the weeks go on, we'll have a lot more to talk about because only in episode 1, stories are soon to take shape.
Yeah.
And if I were to give any last parting words, it's that Burger King is underrated. But yeah, other than that, I'm good.
Yeah. No,
Please
yeah.
sponsor me, Burger King.
Yeah, right. Call him. He's available for
Yeah,
sponsors. No, completely agreed. It's just like this was a primer episode, right? We were just kind of getting acquainted with who everyone is or reacquainted, and it was setting the tone for what's probably coming. But the next episode, it's going to be super fun to recap because we're going to be really cooking with gas, I think, and we're going to have shocking moments unfold in no time. So it's going to be exciting.
for sure. Well, all right, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you all next week.
All right, bye.